Welcome to the Kingdom Come podcast of Overland Park Community Church. That's OPCC. I'm Melanie. Super glad you're here today because we have an opportunity to get to know our new discipleship pastor, Matt Woods. In this conversation today, going to get a chance to hear about a not so great childhood, some mission work that he's been on. He's going to break down this term disciple and discipleship and help us figure out how to accomplish that as a church body. Looking forward to this conversation today, so let's just get into it. So Matt, really excited about our conversation today. There's been a lot of people excited to get to know you here at OPCC, and so welcome.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. Excited to get to know people.
Been an adjustment yet?
It has been an adjustment. We're getting there.
Yeah, got all the names memorized?
Getting there. Getting there. Don't quiz me.
Okay.
Give me grace.
Well, let's start at the beginning because it's always fun to know somebody's roots, where they come from, where they grew up, if they like the Chiefs, that kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Northeast Ohio. Okay. So I grew up into a divorced family. My mom and dad got divorced when they were 8 months pregnant with me. So that's just kind of been my normal, was being with my mom most of the time, my dad every other weekend, and then 6 weeks in the summer. And then growing up, it was just me and my brother. So I have one older brother that kind of followed around when I was younger, and then kind of got older, kind of went different ways. But yeah, I grew up in Northeast Ohio, loved sports, played lots of basketball, lots of soccer, lots of baseball, just enjoyed hanging out with friends, Northeast Ohio. So I do root for the Browns, but then also root for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I've been able to celebrate victory, and I know long suffering, because hopefully the Browns will be able at some point to get to a Super Bowl. But
Pastor Jimmy's going to want to know about the Thunder.
Yeah. The Thunder I enjoy. But a Cavs fan, Northeast Ohio. So Cavaliers, root for the Cavs, root for the Indians, or I guess the Guardians now. I can't say the Indians. I'm allowed to say that. The Browns.
So your upbringing, though, had a lot to do with your coming to faith, the way your family situation was. Share that with us.
Yeah. So my mom and dad didn't know Jesus or didn't follow Jesus. I am the product of, I say, of praying grandmas. So both of my grandmothers really devout, really loved the Lord. And so both of them made sure that I was in church. And so my dad's mom was a Catholic. And so we would go to the Catholic Mass 1 week, and then we would kind of bounce over to my other grandma's church, and she was a Baptist. And so we'd go to the Baptist church. And so did that back and forth. And then when I was in second grade, my grandmother on my dad's side passed away. And so then my dad kind of started to do his own trying to discover who Jesus was. And so at that point, we were all over the place. So I was at a Methodist church, a Pentecostal church, non-denominational church, just him trying to find his footing. And so that was kind of most of my childhood until I was 12. And then when I was 12, my mom's mom, so my grandma on my mom's side, was like, hey, they need to be rooted in a church. My mom had stopped going to church kind of in that season. And so she got convinced by my grandma to bring us so we could kind of make a decision of whether or not we would follow Jesus. And so my mom committed to that and kind of took us with my grandma to the Baptist church I ended up growing up in. And so we went there when I was in sixth grade. And just the pastor there was an amazing man. He ended up really being a father figure in my life. So love my dad. My dad did the best he knew how and loved me as well as he could and tried to give me the best life he knew. He just didn't follow the Lord. And so in terms of like learning what it meant to be a man in the faith and to know how to follow Jesus well, that was really my pastor. And so he was the one I would take a lot of those father questions to. And so it was just super blessed to be in the church that the Lord led us into, and ended up finding Jesus when I was 12 on the mission field. So,
share about that.
Yeah. So my youth pastor snuck me onto the missions team. So you were supposed to be 15.
At 12, did you look 15?
Debatable, probably not. But anyway, my brother was 14, so he was a lot closer. And they were like, hey, Justin, do you want to go? And then he was going to go. And so like, hey, what about your brother? So I got to tag along when I was 12. And
where was the mission field?
So it was in Kentucky. So our church annually would go down to Appalachia and would help rebuild homes. So anywhere kind of Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, parts of Virginia as well, we would go and, spend a week at some site just helping to repair homes. And my first home was in West Virginia. And when you walked in, you noticed it had a very peculiar feature. There was a tree trunk in the middle of the living room. And the foundation on the house had basically been destroyed, and that tree trunk was propped below one of the beams holding up the floor and one of the truss beams on the ceiling, and that was what was keeping
Wow.
the house from caving in. And so we were working on this house in probably the worst poverty I had ever seen at the age of 12.
Yeah.
And then I was in one of the girls' rooms. And so when we got there, we had an exterminator with us because there was a hornet's nest in a hole that saw outside. And so we were repairing the walls, redoing the floors to be able to support the walls to put, drywall and all up to actually put in a room. And so on Thursday of that week, we took the family on a picnic. And one of the girls of the family wanted to come back to the center with us before we went on the picnic. And she's talking to one of the girls on the team, and I'm just next to there putting drywall up and, learning how to do drywall for the first time. I'm sure it was not very good.
Yeah, but at 12, what a great skill to learn.
Yeah. So was helping to frame in and drywall this room, just overhearing this conversation of this girl and this family asking a girl on her team, can she come back with us to the center before the picnic? And we weren't allowed. So the girl on my team was like, no, we're not allowed to do it. And then the little girl breaks down crying. And she was like, all I want to do is go back to the center with you guys so I can get a shower because I just want to be clean when we go to the picnic. And at 12, I was like, man, I am so selfish. I had gotten into an argument with my mom, like as she was dropping me off to go on this mission trip, and yelled at her for getting me embarrassing clothes on the mission trip because I was not willing to make the time to go find nice clothes, or clothes that we could, throw away when I got done. And my mom had served me, and sitting here, I'm telling her that she's a horrible mom and I can't believe she would do that to me. And then I go here and I can get a shower whenever I want. I can get clean whenever I want. And I was like, man, God, I am just not grateful for anything. And so went back, talked with my pastor, and was just like, man, I'm such a selfish kid. And, my pastor just used that as an opportunity to share the gospel. And he was like, look, Matt, like everybody is selfish until the Lord frees them from themselves. And the only way that you're not going to be a selfish person is if you surrender your life to Jesus and let him change you. And so then he started the process, that journey with me, asked me if I wanted to get baptized. And so that's where my journey with the Lord began, was when I was 12 in the middle of West Virginia.
Wow.
On the mission field. And so that's been a big theme of my life. It's just been missions. And that's where God seems to meet me and show me who he is.
So tell me about that first moment when your eyes were opened, revealed to who Jesus as Savior was. Was that kind of an instant thing for you, or did it take time to grow into?
It took time. So I would say some of it I took on faith. My pastor was telling me this is where it is, but like really encountering Jesus came much later. And I should say recognition of encountering the Lord came a lot later. So one of the parts of my story is, my dad kind of in his journey has struggled with just anger. And so early on, that led to abuse. And I remember, retreating from my dad, crying out, to anybody that I thought could hear. Mom, dad was in church. And so I would cry out to the Lord. And in those moments, I would feel just a peace and a warmth encounter me as I cried out to this God that I would hear about, as I was playing with my brother underneath pews at the Catholic church or in the Baptist church. And I had no idea, in those moments what it was. I just knew that I felt better. But later on, as I would read Bible stories and hear people talk, about when they would cry out to the Lord would meet them, that I would look back and be like, oh my gosh, like
that was Jesus.
That was Jesus.
That was the
coming,
presence of the Lord.
And encountering me and just his faithfulness over time. Because even though I knew I was selfish, like even the commitment to get baptized was a little bit somewhat of people pleasing, which has kind of been one of my struggles, to be more concerned about what Jesus thinks than what men think. And so even early on at 12 years old, I was like, I want to get baptized. I kind of think this stuff is true, but I also saw a bunch of my friends get baptized and how they got celebrated. I was like, well, if I could do that seems really cool.
That seems like the thing to do.
And so, even that, looking back, I was like, you know what? My decision to be baptized might not be the textbook today where you're like, oh yeah, Matt should get baptized. But in my faithlessness, God was faithful, and he kind of took me at my word and began to show me, this is who I am, and this is what it means to follow me. And
he takes whatever we willingly offer him and begins to work with that.
yeah.
It's beautiful.
Amen.
Beautiful. All right, let's talk about your family a little bit.
Yes.
Because you got saved, you grew up, you ended up at an organization called YWAM.
Yep.
And share about that a little bit and how that led you to your wife.
So share about how I came into YWAM?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I found out about YWAM while I was in college. So my degree's in Bible and theology.
So for those who don't know, YWAM stands for?
Oh, so YWAM stands for Youth with a Mission. So, but I was in college, and so I worked at the church I grew up in, but I had friends that kind of ran a service. They were people that had went to Youth with a Mission and then had kind of came back and planted this young adult service at their church. And so while I was in college, I would work at the church in the morning, but then I would go to their service in the evening where I didn't have to do anything. I wasn't, one of the church staff. I just could be a guy
filled back up.
Yeah. And so learned about Youth with a Mission there. And so, talking about missions, so kind of my path coming out of college was I was going to go to seminary, and then I was going to come back to the church I grew up in and was going to take over for my pastor when he was ready to retire.
Oh, wow.
That was the plan. And right. What
was your plan?
That was that was our plan. Me
right?
and Roger's his name. And but then after I graduated, he gave a sermon, and he was going through the book of Revelation, and there's the church of Ephesus where it's like, you've forgotten your first love. And I was sitting in that church, in our church, and hearing that, and there was someone was like, the Lord's like, you've forgotten your first love. And I was like, what do you mean? And then that night I went to that YWAM service, and there was that church service, and there was a YWAM team in town sharing with the church, and they had a prayer time, and they were like, anybody that feels like you should get prayer, you should come forward. And the Lord's like, you've forgotten your first love. Like missions is where you met me, and missions is where I want you to go. And I was not really there hearing it. And then he was like, you need to go get prayer. And I was like, I don't want to go. And then finally I just kind of gave in, and I walked up front, and there was one of the guys on the team there, and he's like, hey, what can I pray for you for? And I was somewhat mean, or not mean, but I was just like, I don't know. Yeah. I'm only up here because God told me to. And he was like, okay, well, let's see. And so he goes to pray for me and just asks the Lord, like, Jesus, is there anything you want to tell Matt? And then he's like, I just feel like the Lord said he's made you for the nations, and that he wants you to go. And so then that led me on a little bit of a journey of just praying to the Lord of, all right, God, what do you do? And then eventually about 2-3 weeks later, I gave in. I don't know if anybody knows Augustine's story, but Augustine was sitting in a garden and just heard this girl's voice in the garden open up the book. And so he goes to open it up, and he just kind of plays Bible roulette is what I call it, and just flips it open. And I can't remember the passage, but it was a passage about sexual purity, which is something he personally struggled with. And like when he flipped it open, he knew that the Lord, was speaking, because it like spoke to that deal. And so I was kind of broken in my bedroom. And I was like, God, you did it for Augustine. Maybe you could do it for me. And so I literally just took my Bible and just flipped it up into the ground and just let it hit, and then opened it up. And it was in the book of Acts. And I think it's Acts 18. Don't quote me, but I can go and look it up later. But Paul is... he has just went to a bunch of cities, preached in the synagogue, and it kind of after he preaches in the synagogue, he gets stoned, beaten, thrown out, and it's about to happen again in Corinth, and so he's scared, and it's the only red letters on the page because, Jesus is up in heaven. It's the only red letters on the page where Jesus is speaking to Paul, and he says, don't be afraid, but go. And so
okay, God.
I was like, man, I can be pretty dense, but that's really clear. And so that's what led me into YWAM.
Okay.
And so I ended up withdrawing from seminary. and going to YWAM and doing my discipleship training school out in Denver. And it changed my life. I had been, obviously in Bible school, graduated with my degree in theology. I had led the young adult program at my church the entire time that I was there. But if you asked me, like, did I know how to hear the voice of Jesus? I would have said no.
Wow.
Like I read about him, I prayed to him,
so
but actually
studying with your mind, but your spirit hadn't caught up yet.
But actually being able to hear him, I hadn't. And that was the one thing that Youth with a Mission helped me learn how to do. It's just, how do you hear Jesus? How do you know where he's leading and where he's guiding? And, the Bible says that Jesus only did what he saw the Father doing, and he only said what he heard the Father saying. And so if he's our example, I didn't know how to do that. And so, but at YWAM, I learned how to hear his voice and how to be confident, how to rely on the Bible and community to make sure you're discerning well. And it changed my life. And so then from there, joined a ministry of YWAM called Impact World Tour. And so traveled the country, going city to city, helping churches come together to answer the question of what would it look like for us not to be just OPCC, for an example here, but for the body of Christ to come together and we all figure out what our part is.
Gosh,
and
I love that. That's been a vision for me to see the church united, to have an impact for the actual kingdom, right?
Yeah. So we would bring churches together, business leaders together, politicians, government officials, anybody who loved Jesus. And we would ask the question, what does it look like to complete the Great Commission in your community every year? And the way that we define that to them is that everybody in your town has the ability to hear the gospel, experience the presence of the Lord, and enter into a discipleship relationship, should they choose to want that. And how could you map that out, know if you're doing it or not, and then begin to equip? So we would lead communities on that journey, and then we would catalyze it at the end with an evangelism campaign, where we would try and get the gospel in front of 25% of a population.
Wow.
And so in sociology, they say 25% is critical mass, that if a message can just get in front of 25%, not acceptance, but they just hear it, that message is able to permeate and impact every sphere of society.
Let's do that here. Come
on. Let's do that.
Let's go. Let's do that.
So I was in that and was in Cincinnati on my first campaign. And there was a friend on staff, her name was Cassandra, and she knew Amanda, my wife now, and was trying to recruit Amanda onto our team. But then also what we would find out later was trying to do a little bit of matchmaking with Amanda and I, which she was successful at. So,
so she kind of knew from the get-go.
She knew, and we had to catch up. So when me and Amanda first met, it was not like love at first sight. It was my first campaign, and actually the night that she was in town, it was the first event that I was the lead coordinator on, and it was not going well. Like little things like batteries for the microphones nobody could find, and we had a fight between some of the leaders as you're trying, and so just a whole bunch of stuff. And so in the middle of that, I was super stressed, and Cassandra was like, well, hey, let's go get coffee and try and calm me down. Amanda was there. So like I had met her, didn't really talk a whole lot or whatever. And, but Amanda worked at Starbucks and realized, hey man, missionaries love coffee, but most of them can't afford it.
Especially not Starbucks.
Yeah, especially not Starbucks. And so she bought a bunch of people coffee on the team, and that's just who she is. She just loves to give gifts. And so she bought a bunch of people coffee. But when Cassandra went to give me my coffee, she didn't say, hey, Amanda got coffee for the team. She gave me mine, and she was like, hey, Amanda got you coffee.
Okay. And
so then I was like, man, what's this random girl
getting
me coffee from? And so I was like, well, I should at least thank her. And so, got on Facebook as, my generation did. And hey, thank you so much for the coffee. Really appreciate it. Is there anything I can be praying about for you? And so she was about ready to go to Ireland with some friends to do a mission trip. And so she was like, hey, we're getting ready for this trip. Just would love if you would pray for that. So prayed. When she got back, just sent her another message, like, how'd the trip go? Which then we started to talk just about missions, what was on her heart. And just really bonded over our heart for missions and orphanages and just love kiddos and family and just wanting to be a place for safe place for kids to come and learn. So we just kind of talked about this vision that, we'd kind of both had of like starting orphanages that had businesses attached to them. And there was just this whole master plan that we kind of worked on and prayed through. And then, that started to kind of snowball into more conversation. And so I was like, man, I think I like this girl. And she's like, hey, I think I like this guy. And, so that's where we met. And then a year later we were engaged. And then 5 months after that we were married, and never looked back.
How long have you been married?
So it'll be 14 years in March.
Okay. You have a passion for kids, you and Amanda. Tell me how that shaped your marriage, your calling, your dreams and visions.
Yeah. So me and Amanda have always wanted to have kids. It's actually been one of our greatest joys and one of our greatest struggles because we don't have kids. And so we haven't been able to have kids of our own. We love other people, being able to be kind of aunt and uncle to all of our friends' kids. But we just never been able to have some. And that's always been a dialogue with the Lord of, hey, man, what's going on?
It's a hard journey.
Yeah. But he's met us and he's been faithful. And, as part of that, like a big thing that he's developed is a heart for fostering and a heart for adoption and seeing the fatherless given a home and brought up. And so we're, about ready to start that journey of being able to foster kids. And, I was challenged early on in my career with YWAM. One of the host families that I got to meet, they were a foster family. They got married in their early 20s. By the time that I had met them, they were like in their 60s or 70s, had fostered the entire time.
Wow.
And they had fostered from anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of years, over 400 kids. And so we got to go to their Thanksgiving meal. So I got to join in on that. And there were over 70 people there that had been in that home at some point in time that considered them mom and dad
family,
and was just a place for them to come and to bring their kids. And so, for me seeing that and, sharing that with Amanda, it was like, I don't know that we're going to get to 400, they had a little bit of a head start, but it's like, man, if we could impact kids like that, if we could be a safe place to see families repaired, man, what could we change?
Well, and how fascinating of God to have equipped you at a young age and the experience you had with your pastor, right? And prepare you for all this. Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. Let's focus a little bit more in on OPCC.
Yes.
And you're coming here.
Yep.
How you got here and where we're going from here.
Yeah.
So let's start with how you got here.
Yeah. How I got here is actually part of the foster story.
Okay.
So me and Amanda felt led to, obviously we've felt this calling to foster. One of the hurdles for us, coming out of the mission field, financially, that obviously is not the most lucrative career. And so we just had some financial things we had to work on to get financially stable. And so worked at the company that I was at before OPCC, and the company had a rough patch. We had to make some really tough decisions. Those tough decisions impacted Amanda and I financially, sitting on the executive team with that. But we just trusted the Lord that business will rebound. We'll be able to start fostering once it does. We just got to be faithful to get the business where it needs to get to. So that in August, we just kind of hit a moment where we sought the Lord and just, God, what do you want to do? We felt like you wanted us to start fostering this fall. The money's not where it needs to be in order to be able to do that, but we want to be faithful to you. And if this is when we're supposed to do it, how do you want to go about doing it? And so as we're praying, just felt him say, ask me for a job. And so I was like, okay. And I was thinking like, maybe he's going to tell me Uber or what, like just
DoorDash.
get an evening job and, just
side gig.
Yeah. Just fill in. And so I asked him for a job. And as I'm in that prayer time with him and I'm saying, all right, God, what job do you have? He says, hey, there's a church, that's going to reach out. They're looking for what you've done before. And they just don't know that you're available. And so I was like, oh, okay. I was like, what do you want me to do with that? And he was like, nothing. They'll reach out. And so I went and I told Amanda, I was like, hey, I don't know, like, let's take this to Jesus. It seems a little crazy. Even me, sometimes I'm like, I don't know, was that really the Lord? And so we went and walked around the lake around her house and praying. And she's like, I think it's,
Feel the same thing.
yeah, it's like
Confirmation.
I don't know if it's going to be soon, but I do feel like this is where the Lord's leading us. And so it was like, okay, took it to our house church, had our house church praying into it. They were like, yeah, I mean, it seems right. And so we just kind of held it. So I heard that on a Monday. We prayed Monday night, prayed with our church Wednesday night. And then Friday, I'm in a sales call. And I feel my phone vibrate, and it's Dan Merck from church here. And Dan asked me, Matt, have you been praying about a pastor job? And what I didn't know is he was actually in the car with Jimmy when he texted this. And so I found that out later. Jimmy told me. But so I was like, well, actually, I haven't been praying but when I was praying, the Lord said that a church would reach out. And so here you are. This is timely. Like, let's start the conversation and see.
So how did you know Dan?
So I knew Dan. So Strategy, the company that I worked for,
Okay.
does IT. So it does two things, IT and marketing. We worked for the city of Edgerton. We were their IT provider for a few years. And so I got to work really close with Dan because he on the leadership team for the city. And so I got to work with him. So we got to know each other, and then just through conversation realized that we both love Jesus. And so would get together every now and then, kind of talk about our faith journeys, pray together about different things. And so, but it wasn't often, like it wasn't, and so even like, I think the last time Dan and I had met before that text, it was probably 6 months ago, 6 or 8 months, so it was just totally the Lord,
Wow.
and also just super thankful for Dan, responding to that,
Hearing and responding
to that nudging,
Yeah.
To reach out and just allow the Lord to bring the pieces together. So,
all right. So you're here.
so I'm here.
So you're here. So let's
Yes.
talk about discipleship. Let's talk about
Yeah.
your vision for what Pastor Jimmy and God have called you to do here at OPCC.
Yeah. So I think with discipleship, the big thing is just, I think sometimes it gets like blown really big out of proportion.
Fancy word we don't use every day, right?
Yeah. What is discipleship? And so I think on the simplest form, discipleship is just an invitation from someone to say, come follow me as I follow Jesus. And in you following me, we're going to help you be formed into the image of Christ that God's designed for you. And so it's not having all the answers. It's not, being able to teach or preach all the sermons. It's just, hey, I'm following Jesus. Would you want to come alongside so I can help you work this out? And in a family context, I think it's the other big thing too. It's like that we're doing family together, that we're actually being friends, and we actually like people and we love one another. And then I think on that discipleship journey, you answer kind of 5 core questions. I call it the who questions. And, so the first one's, who is God? So as I'm discipling someone, I want to help them discover who the Lord is. That he's loving, that he's kind, that he's gracious, that he's strong, that he's steadfast, that he's worthy, that he's reliable, that in your darkest moments when you're running to a closet to get away, he will surround you, that they would actually not just know it, but like meet him and experience him. I think that might be one of the biggest kind of pandemics that we have in the church. Is we have a bunch of people that might know the recipe of the Lord, but they've never tasted and seen that he's good. And then they feel like they need to sell everything that they have to go buy the field with the pearl of great price, but they've never actually tasted to see that the pearl's worth it. And then they're wondering, why am I not doing the things that I know I should be doing? And part of it's, well, they've not tasted and seen. They've not experienced beyond just knowing. And so I think that's the big thing of like, how do we help them know who the Lord is, but not just words on a page, actually experience a living Jesus. We serve the only God that's not dead.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And still loves to talk for himself, believe it or not. We just got to make places for people to engage. So that's the first thing, is who's God?
Yeah.
Then on that journey, figuring out, who am I? The Apostle Paul, as he writes his letters, is very confidently able to say, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ by the will of God. Like he knew who he was. He knew what his contribution was to be able to bring to the kingdom of God. And I think it's important in our journey that everybody knows that. You might not say, Matt, an apostle of Jesus Christ. But
isn't that our core struggle though?
Yeah.
Right? And if we're not leaning into the one who created us to answer that question, we're going to try to find it out in the world. Yeah.
So I think in that journey, it's who's God. As people know who the Lord is, the Lord then begins to reveal who they are. They now get to know what their contribution is, and then they bring that contribution to the family, which is their church family. And so then that gets the next question, well, who are we? And so now in my discipleship journey, yes, I know what my contribution is, but I also want to be part of figuring out as I know your gifts and as I know Corey's gifts and Jimmy's gifts and, Rick's gifts and Pat's gifts and Dan's gifts and all of that, as we start to learn the gifts we start to now see a picture of, well, who is this family that God's forming? And so now we know who we are. And so then now it's okay as a church family, what's our contribution to the body of Christ? And then as we begin to look at that, we begin to see pains in the world that begin to grip our heart. And that leads us to the next question then of, well, who are they? And not in a bad way, but who are the people that I see in pain that God's calling me to go and bring the love of Jesus to? And so as I know who God is and I know who I am, and we begin to know what our corporate identity is, and then our hearts begin to break for these things that are going on in the community, and we begin to learn who they are so that we can really serve them. We then get thrust into mission, and then we also start to identify as we're going on that journey who's missing, which then leads us to then be going to reach out and to then invite into that discipleship relationship. Because as I know who they are and I'm reaching and he's now telling me the one that's gone, so I can leave the 99 to go find the one, then I invite them
to come
into
find
this
out
journey of who he is. And now I go through the who's again, and it just becomes this
beautiful
cyclical process.
It's the whole process of transformation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. How do you know that you're on the right path, you're succeeding at that? Like what are markers that you would look for that we're on a good discipleship journey at OPCC?
Yeah, I think it becomes really common to say, what's Jesus talking to you about? And people have an answer. Can we have this, like, what's Jesus talking to you about? Do you know who he is? Is he in relationship with you? Are you hearing from me? I can ask the question, who are you? And you can say who you are. And I can ask the question, who's Jesus talking to you about? And there's actually people that he's talking to you about, And so I think you have some of those questions is like, do we have answers to them? Do we know, who he is? Do I know who I am? Do I know the people in my family? Can I talk about the people in my discipleship group? And, I know my identity, but I also know all the people in my group's identities and know what their contribution is. I know how to make space for them to be able to bring their gifting. Wow. And so I think as we do that, we just begin to know that, we begin to live it. And then, as we know our contribution, are we actually giving it? Talking through that. And so those all are markers.
So that's tactically, that's my next question. Like, how do we carry this out as OPCC? The small groups, the D groups, like how do you see this starting to be implemented to begin to be able to have answers to those questions?
Yes. So I think we know what the questions are, so we can begin to ask them. That's part of the journey that the team and I are working through right now. Of how do we create the processes for that? How do we create the systems to be able to house that, even like those pathways? So if you're not knowing who the Lord is, like, do we have pathways that can help discipleship group leaders know how to begin to lead them on the path of discovering God and hearing his voice? If we have a bunch of people that are in my group that don't know who they are, like, what's the pathway to help them discover that? Is there curriculum? Are there workshops? Are there experiences that we can begin to do to help people do that? And so that's all stuff that we're, talking through as a team, trying to iron out so we can begin to do that. And then even the big piece of it is, that who are we question, like as a OPCC, like, what is our contribution to the Church of Overland Park and to the Church of Kansas City? Because that also leads to more pathways. As we figure out what he's called us to, we can then begin to, create plans of what that looks like and begin to roll it out.
What a beautiful atmosphere you're describing, creating a place where we can come and discover, right? We can come and ask hard questions. We can come and lean in and press in and be received and be transformed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew, that's a lot.
Yes. We're excited.
All right. Let's see here. Let's talk a little bit more about you personally.
Yep.
Because as we get into this process, you know, people kind of like to know. So outside of the church thing, what are some of the hobbies and hangs for Matt? Like, what if I'm going to have a conversation with him? What does he like to talk about? Because what does he like to do?
Yeah, I actually love to talk about almost everything. So I'm super curious about where people are. But
Pastor Jimmy would want to know if you're a hunter.
Yeah, I'm not a hunter, but I would talk to him about it, and I would try and fake it until I made it. Like I get really good questions. No, but things that I love to do, I love sports. So sports has always been kind of a thing that I enjoy doing, and almost any sport. People are like, what sports do you like to play? It's like, if you're willing to teach me, like I'll give it a go.
Oh, he'll be up for pickleball anytime.
Yeah. So I can probably be a disciple for Jim. I don't know that I could be. I'm not that good to be able to be on the court, but I love sports, and so playing sports, watching sports, really engage. Also, me and Amanda love board games. Okay. So if you like board games, we'd love to play board games, love to play cards, get together. Also, when I can slow down, like a good movie or to read a book, and then also hiking. So love the outdoors, camping, hiking.
I don't know if you're gonna find a lot of hiking around here, but we'll see what we can do to help you out.
No. There's not great stuff. But even I will say, there is beauty in nature, even in the plains. But yeah, it's much better to go to the mountains and hike.
A little bit more of a workout, at least. Yeah. All right, so let's wrap things up. I'm gonna ask you what 5 favorite things are that you have. Okay.
Perfect.
So let's start with your favorite escape. You like a beach, a mountain, your bedroom? Like where do you go for peace and quiet and connection?
Yeah, my favorite escape, I don't get to go there, but would be the mountains. I would much prefer the mountains over the beaches. Are lovely, but I would prefer to be on a mountain trail somewhere. So
hiking.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. What's your favorite holiday?
Ooh, favorite holiday. Christmas.
Okay.
I just love Christmas. The lights, the time, just the ability to come together, family.
Yeah.
And then also, there's lots of things that I love about Jesus, but I love that he's close. And I think the one thing to celebrate in Christmas is that Jesus left heaven to be with us, to be Emmanuel, God with us. And that we get to celebrate that we serve a God that doesn't make us get to him, but he comes to us. And so Christmas, I just enjoy that, getting time to spend time with family, reflect on that.
Awesome. All right. What's your favorite candy?
Swedish
Careful,
fish.
because you may get a lot of it. So
Yeah. So it's hard to have. So I like Swedish fish, and then I like dark chocolate pretzels, and it's a good one too. I don't know which one is more of the favorite.
Do you have a favorite color of the Swedish fish?
Just the old school, the
red one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
What's your?
The assorted ones are not. They're not real.
They're not the real thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
What's your favorite beverage?
Ooh, favorite beverage, coffee.
Coffee? What do you put in your coffee, or do you just drink it black?
I drink it all. I do like to drink it black. If I also put honey in it.
Okay.
Or if I put creamer, like hazelnut creamer is usually the go-to.
I know a lot of missionaries know good coffee because you've been to countries that have good coffee. Yeah. So you know how to drink it black.
Yes, I do know how to drink it black.
Okay. Last one might be an obvious one.
Yeah.
What's your favorite verse? Do you have one right now?
Yeah, Galatians 2:20.
Okay.
So I can never fully get it right, but for I no longer live because I've been crucified with Christ, and then the life that I now live, I live by faith in the Son of God who gave himself for me and loves me. And so, I think it's a stark reminder. It's not my life. And so that's one of the things you'll constantly hear me ask is, well, what is Jesus saying? Because it's not my life anymore. I gave my life to him, and it's his life now. And there's also a freedom, I think, in that of I don't have to make all the decisions because I'm really bad at it sometimes. And there's a lot of stuff, and I can just go to him because it's his life and say, Jesus, what do you want to do? But then I think in that I'm not giving my life to a guy who hasn't earned it.
Mm.
I'm giving my life to the one who loved me and gave himself for me. And he's completely worthy and trustworthy to have control of my life. And the craziest thing is that, when you give your life to him, he gives it back.
Yeah. Better than you could have made it.
And so I love that verse. And then
Yeah.
I kind of combine it with Philippians 1:6, he who began a good work is faithful to bring it to completion.
Mm.
And that in this, it's not all on us.
Yeah.
He's the master builder, and he's really great at getting us across the finish line.
And he's really patient.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I need a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Matt, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. This is great.
Hey, thanks for hanging out today for the Kingdom Come podcast from Overland Park Community Church, OPCC. If you'd like to check out more episodes, you can find them anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube.